Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure and honor to have you all of us. Have all of you here. Welcome to the first panel. And as thank you, Joshika, for that sort of apt description. So up until now, I think a lot of the speakers have elaborated on very diverse facets or contours of what a gender transformative education would look like, right? We used terms like curriculum reform, we have used terms like feminist values, we have looked at transformative pedagogy. I think at some point we also, as this session is essentially going to concentrate on what this would look like in the granular, in the nitty-gritties of what a gender equity curriculum would translate into in both our communities, and when we bring it into the education system, how would that manifest, right? Here we're going to specifically talk about breakthroughs Taruki Toli, which is essentially a gender equitable life skills curriculum. And we are essentially going to find out how TKT has journeyed from the community to the government system level, right? This model has been rigorously tested by JPAL, and we have Harushi joining us today who will elaborate on what those findings were. And we are also going to understand from Dr. Sarkaria sir in terms of how it's essentially worked out while we've implemented it in the state of Punjab. Sort of starting off this conversation, Sringa, if I could come to you first, if you could give us a sense of the journey of TKT, right, from the community level to the scale-up ventures that we are in today in both the states of Punjab and Orissa. If you can give us a snapshot of what that journey has been. Dr.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I can go for days together. But honestly, you started this journey many, many years ago in 2012. So the seed to this program started in 2012, and Breakthrough was working on intersectional violence against women issues around domestic violence, gender by sex selection, early marriage, sexual harassment in public and private places. And we realized even then that beneath all of these intersectional violence against women issues is, of course, deep-rooted patriarchy. And a lot of it kind of boiled down to gender-based discrimination and biases which were happening, and the regressive gender norms which kind of propagated it. So we were working with, and we were doing mega campaigns. We were known for our 360-degree interventions, right from the media to the grassroots. And we were primarily working with a lot of adults, including significant stakeholders in us. But we realized that by the time you are an adult, you've already made up your mind, and it is very difficult to move your attitudes once you've already formulated them. So we decided that we need to start young and start at an adolescent stage when your minds are still malleable, you're open to ideas, processes, thinking, you're forming your opinion around gender-related issues. And that's when we designed this program called Tarunki Toli, where every young person finds the light within themselves, and together they can kind of make a difference within their homes, within their communities, within their institutions, and so on. So when we designed this program, we thought, where do we do it? And we started the program in Haryana. Haryana at that point of time, in 2012, had 830 girls to 1,000 boys in terms of stat-sex ratio. And a lot of students that we were working with came from very families with very regressive thoughts around gender and gender-related issues. Many of the girls were unwanted, uncared for, and neglected within their own families. They were given names like Antim and Bateri, meaning that, you've had enough and hope you're the last one. And their journey not just started with these kind of names, but there were restrictions placed on their mobility, on their nutrition, on education. Leisure was completely unheard of, and that was a situation. And girls were completely devalued. So we thought, if we do this program in a state like Haryana, and if it works, then that's something that we would want to kind of work upon. So Breakthrough and JPAL got together, and we reached out to the government of Haryana. We spoke to the SCRT department and said we would want to come and do this program with them. So it was like a tripartite partnership between the two organizations and government, where Breakthrough was a technical partner on gender-related issues. JPAL was evaluation and policy partner, and the government had opened the doors for us in 150 schools where we were doing the program. In another 150 schools, there was a RCT which was being conducted looking at both these intervention and non-intervention sites. We designed the program based on both of us, JPAL and Breakthrough, got together and identified 52 indicators which we had to shift around gender-related issues. And we did a study, we did a baseline on the ground, and based on that, we designed the program. Now, the program, when we designed, looking into what are the gaps in the system, we, looking at all those indicators, we designed sessions for each of those indicators. We designed a 2-year program for classes 6 to 8 from age 11 to 14. And this was implemented in Haryana with over 50,000 plus students. And after the 2 years of the program, we realized it was directly being implemented by Breakthrough facilitators. We realized that the program is quite effective. The details Arushi will share. I'm not taking away the detail, but really it made an impact, especially around education and employment related indicators around gender. Then we thought, okay, if this is working in a place like Haryana, will this work in other places? So Breakthrough was working in other states. So we took this program to Delhi, we took it to UP, Jharkhand, Bihar. And we realized, and of course, we adapted the curriculum a little bit, focusing on what are the issues in those areas. So for example, in UP, we took on the issue of sexual harassment a little more seriously. In Jharkhand and Bihar, we brought in the element of early marriage. And we realized that this program was equally effective in all of these intervention areas. There were other evaluation partners who were doing the study. And there it emerged that in Jharkhand and Bihar, we had almost an increase in the age of marriage by 1.11 years. We also realized even during COVID time, there were absolutely no dropouts in school, while in every other area, there were school dropouts. So these were really encouraging results. And we thought, how do we take it to scale? So, I mean, what we thought initially was this is scale. We're already in Haryana, we're taking in UP, Jharkhand, Bihar, etc. But to achieve true scale, you really have to partner with the government. So we thought that this is something which is working well. We have tried and tested as a model. It is simple, it's effective, it's scalable. How do we kind of take it to the government so that the government adopts the program and builds it in? The curriculum actually took the students through a journey from self-awareness. It followed the Naila Kabir model. So around build their aspirations, around the values, and then took them on intergenerational dialogue where they kind of questioned parents or had conversations around preventing early marriage, pursuing further education. They also had a stance in the community, in the society that they were in, where they could bring on citizenship-related issues within the community. The fourth aspect was around employment and aspirations. So that's something with the evaluation proved that we needed to work a little more on. So based on all these learnings, we thought that we kind of partnered together and we reached out to Punjab government. Sir is here. He's been a huge supporter and an ally for us within the department. We also went to Punjab government and Odisha government and we kind of shared the program and it was wholeheartedly supported. And when we kind of spoke to about the program with the department, the Secretary of Education at that point of time, he was very particular that don't kind of use it as a separate subject, but integrate it within the regular curriculum. And that's how kind of the long journey started, where he collaborated with Punjab government and Punjab kind of took it on as Chandan Reshma, which is, so it was completely integrated and adopted by the Punjab government. It is a Punjab government program. It is no longer a Breakthrough JPAL program. We are only supporting them from outside. And the complete ownership, right from the design, the conceptualizations, the rollout to evaluation is being led by the Punjab government. So that's how the journey began. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sunita. So I think you've touched upon numerous critical aspects, and I think the idea, having piloted it in Haryana and then to take it to different geographical and cultural contexts and to also tweak the curriculum accordingly. So that's vital, and I'm sure evidence in its diverse forms must have given you a sort of a roadmap. I mean, it certainly gave us roadmap in terms of how we can take this. And I think even particularly the point that Smita mentioned in terms of long-term sustainable change can only be enabled when you work with government systems, right? So, Arishi, if we could come to you, and if you could sort of highlight what were the core, what are the cardinal findings of the evaluation, and how did that influence the journey to scale?
Thanks so much. Okay, so as Sunita already mentioned, this was a randomized evaluation that was held in about 314 schools across 4 districts in Haryana. So about 150 schools where the curriculum was actually taught to students by breakthrough facilitators, whereas 150 schools acted as a control group, basically to compare results. The evaluation, of course, was led by 3 academics. There was Seema Jayachandran, who's now at Princeton, Divadhar, and Tarun Jain. And the baseline, of course, was conducted in the beginning. And 2.5 years after the program was delivered and taught to students, we conducted one end line. And then 5 years after the program was delivered and taught to students. So this was 2 years, 2.5 years after the students had completely done with the program and had nothing to do with it anymore. We wanted to see whether the learnings from the program still really persist in the way they see the world and what their attitudes, behaviors, aspirations, and agencies really are. So, both the short-term end line and the mid-term end line actually proved some very, very promising results. The parameters, the 52 parameters, I think if you were to club them together, would really kindly break into attitudes, behaviors, aspirations, particularly for girls, and agency, right? How much agency can girls exude in public spaces, in other domains, within households. The results showed that both boys and girls changed their attitudes and actually developed more gender equitable attitudes. In fact, children who at the baseline held gender aggressive attitudes changed them to actually have more gender progressive attitudes as well. This also translated into behaviors. So both boys and girls showed more gender progressive behaviors as well. Boys showed, in fact, a higher level of gender progressive behaviors than girls. Now, we can look at it from the lens of, oh, wow, the program has really affected boys as well. But there's also a caveat where there could be a possibility where girls don't necessarily have as much agency to show gender progressive behavior. So to get a little technical, the change in gender progressive behaviors for boys was about a standard deviation of 0.6, whereas for girls, it was about a standard deviation of 0.21. Interestingly enough, the gender attitudes and behaviors of the parents of these children actually had no bearing on how much the attitudes and behaviors of the children actually changed. So parents could hold gender regressive attitudes, but what these children are learning in school actually did have a long-term effect on them after the first end line and after the second end line as well. So it's really to showcase that what children pick up in school, what they're learning in school really does stick with them in the way their attitudes, behaviors are formed. And lastly enough, there was a big change in the children's perception of gender equitable behaviors within their societies, which led them to also kind of have higher, not aspirations, but ability to select into higher studies, maybe employment, or at least perceive their community to really allow or ask for women to select into higher education, etc. So what we're now doing is we want to ensure that something like this, we want to figure out if something like this really sticks through the course of one's lifetime. So there is a long-term end line where we're following these students who were exposed to the curriculum about 10 years down the line, slightly more, to see whether there are downstream outcomes that have really kind of affected, had been affected through this curriculum as well. So has age of marriage kind of increased? Has age of first child increased? Have women selected into higher education? What is the employment rates for women who have actually gone through this curriculum, or the partners of the men who actually went through this curriculum as well? So I'm going to stop over there at the moment. And
Yeah, thanks, Arushi. I've also been past shit where I've been told that we need to wrap up by 12:30, 35. So maybe I have another question, follow-up question for you, but maybe I can come back to you. Dr. Sarkari, if we could come to you, sir. I mean, Punjab is where the first scale-up sort of model was spider undertaken. We wanted to understand from you, what was Punjab government's, particularly the education department's vision in terms of what gender change should look like? And if you could possibly sort of highlight some of key, sort of desires that the department and the state wanted to implement with regard to a gender transformative education.
Thank you. So, I have a career in school education of 35 years. And I was associated with the SCRT in one capacity or the other for 20 years or so at different levels. So initially, if I look back, so this was not the priority of SCRT or even the education department. So it was so until later part of the 90s. I could see, something on this front when National Curriculum Framework 2005 came into existence. And although we were doing something earlier, but those initiatives were at the national level, and those initiatives trickled down to states in bits and pieces. But there was no organized efforts on this front. But after this National Curriculum Framework came, and the states were to prepare their own curriculums, then it became the agenda in SCRTs and school education boards, because there are certain parts which are looked after by SCRT and there are certain parts which are looked after by boards. I still remember, so there was a focus group set up for this, gender inequality or equality. So the observation of the focus group was, even in our schooling system, the schools are reinforcing this gender inequality. So that is the observation of the focus. So I take it as the starting point when this issue came into education seriously to be dealt with. So thereafter came SDEs, so SDE 4 and SDE 5. So systematic efforts started happening sometime after 2006 or so. As far as SCRT Punjab is concerned and the vision on this gender equality, so breakthrough came to us in 2018 or 19, I think. So they came with a program, they apprised us of the initiatives they took in the neighboring state, Haryana, Taro Ki Toli. And I still remember they came with the proposal to scale it in schools, but not in all the schools. But our secretary was so convinced with the program that rather than just going for in some schools in the Punjab, they allow to universalize it all the government schools. Because actually the Department of School Education have direct control on the government schools, not on the schools, private schools, and the schools operating in the state affiliated with other boards. So they offered something and we took it, the larger scale than the scale they offered us. So that was the starting point. So vision for gender equality through education, in educations, when we partnered with BT and of course with JBAL, because JBAL, showed that this was the program which proved to be effective in Haryana. So thereafter we started working on that. We looked into the curriculum, that how it can be reformed, then textbooks, teacher education, but one part, teacher trainings. Because largely the teacher education is divided into two parts, pre-service and post-service, in-service program. So we started working at that was a full G. And it was fantastic to see how the program was accepted by the teachers, key resource person, students, and all that. Of course, we faced many challenges. So in between somewhere we felt that we should focus on the pre-service education of the teachers. Because if teachers, when we are making the teachers, so before they join the schools as teachers, they should be well prepared, they should be well acquainted how to deal with this issue. So we were, by that time, I was out of the SCRT, but I don't know to what extent we could work on the pre-service school education part. And now I have come to know that one more dimension is added in the program, which is going on through BT and JPAL in Punjab, parental engagement. Because that was very, very important thing I think we were missing. Because if we are teaching something, some value to students in schools, and when they go back to their homes, they see that this is something which is different from what is we are being recognized in schools. So that is a wonderful step, I have to say, that we are having these dimensions. But still I feel that we should focus on the pre-service education, curriculum, textbooks, and pedagogical practices, just to nullify this gender inequality in education. So if we take care of these things, of course, it will be a powerful tool to reach out to the people, or just, filter in the society with the purpose of ensuring equal rights, opportunities, not in workplaces, homes, and societies as well.
Thanks so much, sir. Just a quick follow-up to that question. So in a way, you've answered, you've sort of touched upon it. But specific to the context of Punjab, you mentioned that when, of course, Breakthrough and JPAL came to the Punjab government, it was suggested that we had a plan for a certain number of schools. It came from the Punjab government that we should universalize it. Similarly, you mentioned there were some pointers in terms of the training. What other specific pointers in the context of Punjab do you think enabled a scale up of this kind, sir, in the context of Punjab? Do you think of any? I know you've sort of transitioned out halfway through, but in case you have any reflections.
So the one biggest enabler, honestly speaking, the support we got from the secretary. Because things happen when it are embedded, it is in the mind of the government. And government starts with secretary. If secretary is convinced, he'll convince a minister. A minister will convince the chief minister. So that's why I always suggest to whosoever want to work with the government that don't be after, directors and deputy directors and district education, even DCs. Directly try to convince to secretary or better to the minister. Because a minister in every government has a, tenure of 4.5 years. When they take up the charge, 3 months it takes to understand the department, all that. Last 6 months, they are preparing for the next election. And in Punjab, I don't see any minister who served as education minister for full 4 years. So there are changes twice or thrice in the ministry. So again, and even secretary, it is true for the secretaries. I don't see any secretary who served for full terms. There was a study by NEPA that hardly a secretary works for 1.5 years or 2 years at the most. I have seen only one education secretary who served for around 4 years. They are worried about the political leaders are worried about their political mileage. If they are convinced that they are going to get some mileage through good program, which is needed. So this is a program which is actually needed in North India. I think it is more so. So this is my understanding. So this was the one big enabler. That's why, the secretary, he was convinced rather than going for, small number of schools, he rather directed that it should be in all schools, at least in all government schools, and we could do that. Sunita said that it was integrated, but it was not integrated actually. So I'll assume it to be integrated if the curriculum which is being recommended by Punjab Education Board, which is being taught in private school as well. So if we are to integrate it fully, so it will be integrated in such a way that all the schools working under the Punjab School Education Board do something on this front. They use that curriculum. Of course, teacher training is also a challenge, that how to reach out to the teachers of the private schools. But I think the coalition should think of that also. Society cannot, when we talk of the private school doesn't mean the rich or big schools. Large number of private schools are as good or as bad as the government schools. Their fee structure is also. So we should, if we are really thinking of inclusiveness, so we should think of that. Again, if secretary is convinced, he would do something. Because
Thank you so much, sir. That's actually quite deeply illuminated, because we know that the moment there is political will and there is bureaucratic will, things, and as if it comes from the top to the bottom, it's far more faster. But thank you so much. Sunita, I know we are sort of running short of time. Do you want to quickly respond to the point on the integration bit, or do we?
So completely agree with sir that it's really important to have the political will and willingness to partner with something like this. So for our program, we had the privilege of the secretary fully supporting it and making sure that it wasn't like a standalone curriculum, but it was integrated within the textbooks. And textbooks that also, like social studies, English, Welcome Life, which was a value education piece. And so that, it's not as if when the government changes, the curriculum gets dropped. If it is within the social studies subject, it is very difficult to kind of remove the things. It will only happen when the next cycle of curriculum reviews happen. So, I mean, that was like which is why I spoke about integration. And of course, within the government system, we're looking at a gender transformative approach. So we're looking at, of course, the top political will backing it. It is connected to the state education policy, the national level policies, the SDGs. There is buy-in from the political leadership. We've seen 2 governments change in Punjab itself. And because we had the relationship, I mean, the launch was done by one CM and it has continued to roll out with the other CM. That was also because of the relationship and built by us with the department across board. So it's not just the top bureaucrats, but also across the system on how much ownership people have for a program like this. And that has really helped. There's also been ownership by the government in terms of budget allocation. And not just once, but every year, about printing these textbooks, making sure that the investment is there for the teachers' training and all of that. So for the teachers' training, we're not just looking into, the subject and around gender, but also facilitation skills on how to take on such difficult issues around gender norms with the students and also challenge their own perceptions about gender. So, I mean, you have to personalize it in order to convince the students also. So there'll be many incidences where teachers have questioned their own denial in taking promotions because of gender norms and have gone forward and taken those promotions. Working with the DEOs, BOs, so that the administration also kind of takes ownership of it. And of course, parental engagement through SNCs and PTMs. We have Siddharth, who is actively supporting us with that. The curriculum also has been like a huge process. Even though we had Taro Ki Toli, which is tried and tested in RCT and stamped by globally. But when you're integrating within the government system, you have to adapt it to the government scenario. So it was a year-long process. We did like secondary research. We do textbook analysis. We put together a team of experts. We did an expert committee which had pedagogy experts, instructional designers, gender experts, experts from SCRT, academicians, people with the cultural context, the political context, to review all of the sessions that we designed and see whether it is in sync with where Punjab wants to take it forward. So all of that was done, and we also did the textbook analysis from multiple levels. So are the illustrations fine? So Vatana, you spoke about Kerala government doing it. So I mean, that's like one of the pieces. Is the language inclusive? Is it representational? So there were many parameters of reviewing the textbooks, and based on that, we looked at that. And we designed lesson plans on those 52 indicators. And then finally, it had to look like an English chapter. It had to look and feel like a social studies chapter, and then it got integrated. So, and then printing and distribution and teacher training. So of course, it was a long effort, but well worth it. And hopefully, and it's gone to private schools also, besides the 6,250 plus government schools, it's gone to 5,000 schools in Punjab. So overall, we are thinking of making an impact by 2028 with over 30,000 schools across Punjab and Odisha. We're thinking of capacity building around 66,000 teachers. And the aim is to kind of make sure that these 4 million students, out of them, a certain percentage, at least 60%, show and demonstrate gender transformative and gender progressive attitudes. We're also coping, that's not just in terms of attitude, but in terms of school retention, by increasing school retention by 7% in Punjab and 4% in Odisha. So that's plan.
Thanks so much, Sarita. I mean, of course, now we're sort of short of time, but I wanted to come to you, Nitesh. Nitesh, yeah, we've talked about political will, we've talked about bureaucratic change, and obviously engaging with the education system. But, youth and young people form like the seminal aspect of a gender transformative education. And एक myth भी होता है कि मतलब जेंडर ट्रांसफर एजुकेशन बस लड़कियों के लिए होता है. तो आई वांटेड टू अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम यू कि आपको इसका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था, हाउ हैज़ इट इम्पैक्टेड यू, एंड व्हाट इज़ योर सेंस कि हाउ डज द जेंडर ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव एजुकेशन engage with boys and people of diverse gender identities as well?
हम जो है ब्रेक थ्रू के साथ 2018 से तारों की टोली के प्रोग्राम के हिस्सा रहे हैं. तो जो तारों की टोली का कार्यक्रम है, जो करिकुलम है, उसमें से मैंने सीखा, जब मैंने मीटिंग ज्वाइन की तो उसमें मैंने सीखा कि जो है जैसे जो सत्र हैं, सत्र के माध्यम से किसका काम किसका नाम, इन जैसे सत्रों के माध्यम से जो एक माइंडसेट है कि जो घर के काम होते हैं वो ख़ास तौर पे लड़कियों के हैं, अगर बाहर का कोई काम है तो ख़ास तौर पे लड़कों के लिए है. तो जो सत्र है वो एक नज़रिया बदलने के लिए काफ़ी है कि जो है काम सिर्फ काम होते हैं, उनको जो है हम लोग किसी जेंडर पे नहीं बांध सकते. तो ये जो लर्निंग रही इसको मैंने सीखने के बाद अपनाया. हालांकि थोड़ा बहुत चैलेंज रहा क्योंकि सामाजिक प्रेशर होता है सभी पे. तो जो चैलेंज रहा तो चैलेंज को फेस किया, मुझसे बातचीत की. तो ये जो मैंने बदलाव किया खुद में किया. अगर हम लोग बात करें कि घर के काम के लिए कौन करता है तो ये ऑफकोर्स फीमेल के लिए आता है कि फीमेल घर का काम करेगी. तो अगर मैं बात करूँ मेरी फैमिली की तो फैमिली में मैं हूँ, मम्मी है, पापा है, 3 लोग हैं. तो जब अगर किसी से बात होती है तो क्योंकि मम्मी जो है थोड़ा बीमार रहती हैं, तो कोई भी होता है जो मिलता है सजेशन यही देता है कि आप लड़के की शादी कर दीजिए. ये अभी से नहीं, 2018, 19, 20 से चला आ रहा है. लड़के की शादी कर दीजिए, घर में बहू आ जाएगी, खाना बनाएगी. ठीक, तो मैंने उससे इस तरीके से एक्शन लिया कि बहू ही क्यों, हम भी तो खाना बना सकते हैं, घर के काम कर सकते हैं. तो जब उसको मैंने ऐसे किया तो मैंने ये बोला कि अभी मेरी शादी करने की उम्र नहीं है. जब मैं मतलब मैच्योर हो जाऊंगा, मुझे लगेगा मैं शादी करने के लायक हूँ, खुद से तैयार हो जाऊंगा, तब मैं इसके बात कहूँगा. बाकी रही बात घर के कामों की तो उससे मैं पूरी स्वीकारता से एक्सेप्ट करता हूँ कि घर के काम सिर्फ लड़कियों के नहीं, वो मेरे भी हैं, पूरी जिम्मेदारी के साथ. क्योंकि अगर खाना खाना मेरा काम है, कपड़े पहनना मेरा काम है, तो ऑफकोर्स वो सब सारे काम घर में करना भी मेरी ही जिम्मेदारी. और इसी मुद्दे के साथ हम लोगों ने गांव में भी बहुत सारी मीटिंग में डिस्कशन किया और अपने साथ बहुत सारे यूथ को और साथियों को कलेक्ट किया जो इस मुद्दे को थोड़ा सा और बेहतरीन तरीके से डेवलप कर सकें और हमारा सहयोग कर सकें. तो उसी समय धीरे धीरे इसी मीटिंग का हिस्सा बनते रहे. फिर कोविड-19 आया तो कहीं ना कहीं जो ब्रेक थ्रू की कनेक्टिविटी समुदाय से थी और डायरेक्ट जो है एक रूप से डिस्कनेक्ट हुई, लेकिन फिर भी डिस्कनेक्ट होते हुए भी कनेक्टेड रहे क्योंकि हम लोग ऑनलाइन कनेक्टेड रहे माध्यम से, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप के माध्यम से. तो उस समय मैंने क्रिएट किया एक व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप अपने पीयर्स के साथ, साथियों के साथ पे, जिसमें जो तारों की टोली के जो मुद्दे हैं, हैंड वॉश, उस समय जो था मास्क वगैरह, ये सब चीज़ों के अवेयरनेस के लिए हम लोगों ने काम किया। एक प्रकार से उस समय ब्रेक थ्रू के जो साथी हैं डायरेक्ट फील्ड पे ना पहुँच के भी कहीं न कहीं ब्रेक थ्रू समुदाय में था, हम लोगों के माध्यम से, हमारे और भी साथियों के माध्यम से ब्रेक थ्रू काम कर रहा था। पर धीरे-धीरे मौका मिला ब्रेक थ्रू के साथ आगे काम करने का, तो एक जर्नी रही जो ब्रेक थ्रू के साथ मैंने सीखा, उसको मैंने फील्ड पे भी अब एग्जीक्यूट करता हूँ और जो है उसको आगे मैं सिखाता भी हूँ। तो अगर हम बात करें लर्निंग प्रोसेस के बाद सिखाने की प्रक्रिया के, जो मैंने सीखा उसको सिखाने में अच्छा इसलिए लगता है कि जो जब तक आपकी स्वीकार्यता खुद को नहीं होगी, जब तक आप खुद नहीं एक्सेप्ट करोगी कि जो भेदभाव और डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है वो घातक है सबके लिए, तो शायद आप किसी को समझा नहीं सकते। जब मैंने उसको खुद एक्सेप्ट किया तो मैं शायद ब्रेक थ्रू के साथ काम कर रहा हूँ अभी। अगर हम बात करें इस करिकुलम का हिस्सा रहे अडोलसेंट और यूथ, उनके साथ काम करें, तो अभी हम लोग बात करें कुछ जिनके साथ बात करते हैं तो नेगोशिएशन स्किल हो गया और लीडरशिप हो गया, उनको डेवलप करने के लिए हम लोगों ने बातचीत की। तो अगर हम बात करें इसी के साथ हमारे कई सारे यूथ लीडर हैं जो इसको एक्सेप्ट करते हैं। अगर हम बात करें एक हमारे यहाँ मोहनलाल लखनऊ के मोहनलालगंज ब्लॉक में एक लड़की है रीता, जो कि मतलब एक ऐसे गांव से आती है जहाँ पे लड़कियों पर निकलना थोड़ा सा बहुत ही मुश्किल काम है। तो वो इंटर तक पढ़ी थी, फिर गद्दे बैठ गया, मतलब यही हो परिवार में बात चली थी शादी हो जाएगी। लेकिन धीरे धीरे उसके साथ बातचीत करने के बाद, ट्रेनिंग्स में अटेंड करने के बाद, मीटिंग अटेंड करने के बाद उसने जो है ये सीखा कि कहीं ना कहीं हम घर में बंधे नहीं, हम बाहर भी निकल सकते हैं। तो उसने धीरे धीरे बातचीत करके इनिशिएट करके वो जो है अभी राजस्थान में एज ए सेल सिक्योरिटी काम कर रही। तो ये जो जर्नी रही यहाँ से निकलने की वो थोड़ा सा आसान नहीं रही, ये धीरे धीरे बात करने का नतीजा है जो वहाँ तक निकल पाई। और ऐसे ही अगर हम बात करें मेल में, तो हमारे साथ और साथी जैसे सौरभ हो गया, अभिषेक हो गया, इन लोगों ने जो है एक्सेप्ट किया कि घर के काम जो है सिर्फ मेरे नहीं, या फिर मतलब सिर्फ मेरे नहीं है या फिर किसी और के नहीं, ये सारे काम जो हैं हम सभी के हैं। तो धीरे धीरे चैलेंज आते हैं सबके पास, उनके पास भी चैलेंज आए। जब घर के काम करना शुरू किया तो उनके साथियों ने ही जो है रोक टोक लगाई कि घर के काम करने, तो उन्होंने मतलब स्वीकार किया। और धीरे धीरे वो जब एक बोलते हैं मतलब एक मार्गदर्शक बने, वहाँ से निकले धीरे धीरे, तो उनके साथी और भी गांव से निकले। जैसे रीता निकली तो रीता के साथ अब उस गांव के धीरे धीरे एक दो लड़कियां और निकलना शुरू। इस प्रकार से वो इन्फ्लुएंसर हो गए अपने गांव के लिए, जो कहीं किसी न किसी को रास्ता दिखाते हैं कि आप भी घर से बाहर निकल सकते हैं और बेहतरीन कर सकते हैं।
थैंक यू सो मच रितेश। नहीं, और आपने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से, बहुत सुंदर तरीके से हमें ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव शब्द जो हम यूज़ करते हैं, ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव एज अ वर्ड इज़ एक्सट्रीमली हेवी, बहुत भारी होती है, तो उसका मोडालिटीज़ क्या होता है, खास करके लड़कों के लिए भी वो चैलेंज जेंडर नॉर्म्स कन्वेंशन कम्युनिटी से क्या पुशबैक होता है। थैंक यू सो मच वो एलैबोरेट करने के लिए। आई नो इफ आई कैन जस्ट रिक्वेस्ट Doshika for 2 more minutes because I just want to end with a very critical point. She's given a thumbs up. I can't see her. Okay. So just one final point, and this is linked to the point that Ditesh makes. Essentially, कि change बहुत gradual होता है, long-term change particularly बहुत slow होता है. And the point that Sunita had made earlier, कि हमें we know that when we work on this, not just with communities, it's important to engage with government systems for long-term change. So that brings us to a very critical point of sustainability. So Arushi, if I can come to you finally, if you can just maybe elaborate on how we've sort of envisioned sustainability in our approaches, and also this sort of trifecta of research and evidence and like policy, all of it coming together, and like policy. So if you could just maybe elaborate on that.
Absolutely. So I work on the scale-ups team with JPAL from Policy Lens. So this is pretty much the crux of what I think about every day. But given that we have a paucity of time, I'm going to talk about two major things. Of course, there's a lot to be said about sustainability in government structures itself, while actually also working with government structures to create systems change, right? So utilizing already available government structures to integrate so seamlessly a program that it is indistinguishable from what the government is doing on a regular basis, but also utilizing it to ensure that there are systems that are created for the long run. So talking about this, I think I'm going to touch upon something that Sunita has already mentioned in terms of integrating the curriculum itself into regular textbooks and therefore integrating teacher training as well. So as one of the main things that we wanted to do, as Sunita said, was to ensure that teachers are trained not only about the curriculum and how to deliver the curriculum, but also gender, technicality, the technical aspects of what gender is. So what we've done is now that we've integrated this curriculum into English and social studies, it is indistinguishable from your regular SCRT textbook. While everybody knows that there is a Chanand Rishmat curriculum within the SCRT textbook, or there is a program such as this, you can't open the SCRT 8th grade textbook today for social studies and tell which is a Chanand Rishman subject and which is a social studies subject per se. So integration has ensured at least that this is going to stay for a long period of time, and has also been integrated into teacher trainings, right? So now when teachers are trained on social studies, they're also trained on this. This has also answered one of the other key things of allocated resources in terms of funding or printing of textbooks, as well as training of teachers. Now that it is integrated, we don't need to ensure that every year there is a line item in the education budget that asks for the textbooks to be printed and teachers to be trained specifically on the Chanand Rishman program. I think the other very important thing is actually ensuring that there are dynamic feedback loops created within the government itself, so that there is enough information coming into decision makers, labs every week, every month, and the people who are actually collecting the information on the ground also have stake in how the program is running. So JPAL, of course, has worked with Breakthrough to figure out how to monitor and evaluate the program at scale. We're doing a baseline and an inline for students and teachers to see whether there have been shifts in attitudes, behaviors for students and teachers over the 3 years across the state where this program is being taught. And we're also seeing how it is being delivered in classrooms, but how do we ensure that this feedback loop actually stays on? So we are now working on enabling the monitoring and evaluation unit of the government itself to take on this responsibility. So within the framework of the monitoring kind of checklist that our officials within the government actually look into every 6 months, every year, can we actually include criterion to measure the Chanand Rishman program as well, and train these officials to ensure that there is some amount of feedback coming into decision makers, budget allocators, bureaucrats within the government to actually see whether this program is working on ground or not. So proof of concept is being established by JPAL and Breakthrough, but sustainability levers are being created for the long run with governments, of course. I think those are, I'm going to stop over here. Those are the two major things. We can go on and on about this, but since we are short on time.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. Because particularly the point on institutional mechanisms and how that enforces, sustained change, right, in many ways. So I think, yeah, we have to end here. But if there are, we can open up for a couple of questions, if anybody. If I'd request that if somebody with a question, if they could give their name and identify their organization as well, please.
My name is Chinmay from Praha. And my question, I don't know if it's a question or a thought for reflection, but whatever discussion that has happened, obviously it's about how we have built curriculum, but also in terms of implementation, what actually was the core was partnership, right? And this is something that has been a bit of a, you can say, a challenge or a restriction, being an organization which not only sort of talks about youth-centric leadership, but also practices. That means a lot of our employees are young people, and they not only just co-lead but lead programs, right? And it's my personal experience, whenever we sort of go around and try to build partnerships with the stakeholders, particularly from the government space, a lot of time there is a challenge of building trust. Especially two of my identities in comes. One, I'm a young person. Second, I am a woman. A lot of time they say ki, oh, you're gonna do this. because they don't believe us, right? And the curriculum that we run is very, very similar that you have just shared. And I think, uh, making it sustainable, like before that, how am I supposed to build trust that, we can do a good work? Just trust us, right? And we are also a young person. And another thing is that we are also talking here about, young people sort of taking agency to make decisions and also challenge gender norms. But we sort of, you know, uh, put in a challenge space that we do say this, but it's not being practiced by the stakeholders itself. So how sort of how do we move forward, and how can we get some sort of support in this? So yeah, I mean, you can answer it, or it's just like a reflection, because this is my struggle. And it's been a struggle for the past 5 years, and I have led programs in Telangana, and people do not sort of even trust you can do it, but I've been able to do it. So, and now I'm co-leading this in Delhi as well. So yeah.
Sunita,
So thank you for raising this. I mean, it's a real challenge. And you're a young person, you're a woman. Similarly, there are multiple identities, and there are preconceived notions and unconscious biases which kind of, set a filter as to whom do you open the doors for. From the government side, I'll ask Sarkaria sir to answer. But from our side, I think what helps in opening doors. One is win-win partnerships is critical to any intervention. For this program also, it was critical that Breakthrough, JPAL and the government came together, and we were building on each other's strengths rather than pushing our own agenda in an individual way. So there's a lot of validation to that. The second piece is around evidence. So if your program is good, of course, you will have multiple case stories and all of that, change happening. But do you have like a solid grounded evidence which is proving your model, saying that this works? Not just in the programmatic phase, but in the long term, does it have an impact on young people's lives, and especially in and around the spaces that they're occupying? I mean, you can kind of research papers, other people talking about your work besides you yourself also helps. When you go to government, you have to kind of pitch your program in connection to the policies that the government is anyway aligned on. So if the government is pursuing a certain policy, how is your program fitting into that program? How is it advancing the agenda of the government? So you're not promoting your agenda, but you're actually promoting the government's agenda. So if they're working on employment, how is your program going to help in that employment journey? If it is around life skills, how is your program connecting to life skills and citizenship, etc.? So you have to make that connection, be well prepared, do your homework, do your secondary research, do your formative research, really understand the context of the space before you actually go and pitch with the government. When you speak from the language of evidence, of proven models, of published papers, of representing work, because you're not just representing yourself, you're representing a quantum of work which has been proved, tested, and proven. So that really helps. From the government side, of course, we also try to make sure that we wear saris, even though we are much older than you. I still continue to wear saris when going for government meetings. That tells how formal it looks. But I'd like to hear from government and other people who are sitting in the government, what helps when a young person comes? What is, what should they bring about when they kind of come?
So right now I am not government. But I can speak my experience. So first I endorse whatever she said. So because I have dealt with so many organizations, foundations who come to us to help us. And sometimes on the same agenda, we get 5 different organizations. They won't help us on the same agenda. The thing is, we see from 2 angles. One is from the government, so I am not speaking. That someone has come, so we have in mind that they have some stereotype thing, they have done it in this state, and now they are imposing that to us. So I divide such initiatives or proposals or programs in two. One is supply based and one is demand based. Supply based, you come with something, try to impose that. Demand based, you ask that this is something you need. If you want us to help you, to assist you, you try to make trust, build trust mutually. You decide that this is something we already have done. If you want, that's something needed in your state, we are going to jointly customize things as for your need. So that becomes demand based. So rather than submitting your proposal, what I do, because when I am once convinced that this is something good for the state, rather than making you submit the proposal, I make the proposal with the help of my staff, with the help of my seniors. Then I write to you that this is something we need. You need your assistance. If we go this way, the program goes very well. Otherwise, we are always doubting that they are coming with something, they are imposing us stereotype, blah, blah, blah. So this is a strategic thing I have, tried during my time. And that's why so many organizations have worked with the government, assisted the government to, do wonderful tasks in different fields. I don't know whether I could answer your question. I'm just speaking out of my experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, unfortunately, this is the last I should quickly add, and then maybe.
I just wanted to add one more point to what Sunita and Satarya sir also said. I think when we work with governments, and I completely understand, I've been working with the governments for about 10 years. I had very similar issues, but what I realize also with working with them embedded within the system is very often a lot of government officials too are really busy in general with their day-to-day, right? So what we might perceive as them not showing interest or them dismissing us because maybe we're too young might just be a matter of them being extremely busy in general. So what I think has really, really helped is kind of keeping at it for sure and ensuring that you're showing face, you're ensuring that you're showing to the government that what you're committing to them is something that you can definitely deliver on over a short-term and long-term period. And then identifying champions like Sarkaria sir who actually want to get something done and are willing to work with you. And there definitely are officials everywhere who would want to do that. So I think also identifying those officials and really building that relationship with them and working with them closely is something that really kind of helps drive that change, albeit slowly, but definitely does help drive that change.
Thank you so much, Arushi. Unfortunately, we'll have to wrap up now. I know that Jatin has a question. Jatin, can I request you to maybe we can catch hold of them during lunch?
It was not a question.
Okay. Okay, all right. Is this something very pressing? Do you want to?
No, I just wanted to acknowledge the Punjab government because, sir, after you started it, right now, recently, the government has issued an order to all the schools that every school should have a gender focal. And we are running a gender champions program where we have identified around 50 people from the state level, district level and block level. And we have been training them to how to train other teachers. And these gender focals from all schools will now be trained by the government resource people. And this is a way we are trying to, build the internal capacity and come out. So from the time you started and today we have gender focals for every school in Punjab. So thank you, sir, for that. I just wanted to.
So every school, all private school and
Not private, not private, sir, government.
so larger agenda is all school means all schools, whether they are working with our board or with other board.
Yeah. Thank you for showing us that vision. We'll try to push that out.
Sure. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, panelists. Now we move on to Renats.
diabetes.